Welcome back from COP25. We are live at the Italian Pavilion, and our next guest today is Jean-Betrand Mhandu. Jean-Betrand, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Jean-Betrand is the Regional Director of Earth Day Zimbabwe and the National Coordinator of the African Youth Initiative on Climate Change of Zimbabwe.
True.
Jean-Betrand, I'd like to ask you first, what do you think the role of young people is today? We saw that the youth climate change movement has been growing so much over the past years, and what's needed now to transition to the next step, and what are youth demanding?
Okay, so the role of young people now, it's a little bit more complicated than it might seem. It goes beyond just putting pressure or just reading about climate change in the books and thinking about climate change, just talking about climate change. It's now a matter of putting pressure on the policymakers, the decision makers, the duty bearers, some of the people who managed to get where they are because of exploitation or because of causing these challenges that we have. So we need to deviate from those practices. So as young people, what we have to do is we have to call upon young people, put pressure on the duty bearers, on the decision makers and the people who have power right now, so that we can also be able to change. At the same time, it's also our duty now, because we have a new planet that we have to dream of, that we have to think of. So we should have a vision as young people of where do we want to go, given that everything that we are crying about is there. What exactly do you need? Where do you want to go? What's the vision behind it? And then identify the mechanisms that we might need. I'm sure the elderly now, they have a challenge because they have been living in a sort of way that was pro-fossil fuels, pro-pollution, environmental degradation, aiming for development. So this is quite a huge challenge for them, but at the same time they have to transition. So they require us young people to come on board also with practical solutions and innovative ideas of what can we do, how can we implement. At the same time, when we give these solutions or these proposals, we should be able to facilitate, get engagements with relevant partners, convince some people with the like-minded, so that we can get resources to promote our initiatives.
And because of the fact that the youth movement is really calling and asking for solutions, but also implementing many creative and strategic, fantastic solutions already. What is happening in your country, in Zimbabwe? Like, we know that climate change affects different countries, of course, in different ways. What are the impacts of climate change? What are the strategy in place when it comes to climate change adaptation and mitigation? And what are young people in Zimbabwe doing?
Okay, currently we are harshly hit by climate change effects. We recently suffered the cyclone Idai, the famous cyclone Idai, that was really devastating, and it affected our crops. It affected the people that were living, their shelter, infrastructure, everything, loss of life as well, threatening even food security, you know. So currently climate change, because of the floods, the droughts, affects our food security, our health, all things are at risk. So we have mechanisms for us to transition and try to build resilience within our communities, transition from fossil fuels through the NDCs, that is aiming at reducing, emissions.
NDCs are national determined contributions, yes, which are the plans that every country has to submit and that will be and are being reviewed. So very important, just for the audience that perhaps doesn't know.
Yeah, true. So we also have a low emission development strategy that goes beyond the NDCs, that goes up to 2050. Our national determined contributions, they aim up to 2030, but they aim at reducing emissions by 33% per capita. So that's a strategy that can help each and every person in the world to participate in. As young people, we were like so heavily engaged in the development process, as well as the implementation strategies that we are currently mechanizing. But our main activities that we should do is make sure that each and every person in the country accepts these things, accepts them, becomes way of life. It becomes a new thing that they live upon. So we have to make it believed by the community. So our aim is to also raise education civically, so that also we get more like a collaborative approach where we get to learn from the audience. They tell us what it is that they really need and how best can they reduce their emissions, rather than us dictating to them what we need to do.
Absolutely. What is the African Youth Initiative on Climate Change doing in Zimbabwe? What are your projects and how are you working with the young people there?
Okay, in my country we do lots of raising of awareness on climate change and environmental related issues, engaging youth and youth organizations into climate change related issues. We do lots of advocacy with the government. I'm currently here at COP25 because I was funded by a government project by UNDP. That's as a result of advocacy, you know, that's claiming your spaces and making sure that your voices are heard and the voices of young people are heard in decision-making processes. We do lots of community-based initiatives, community-based projects. We raise awareness and we educate on climate-smart agricultural practices to enhance our food production. We also do some initiatives on waste management, engaging society so that they can manage their waste like sustainably. It might be solid waste or biodegradable waste. We engage also communities in issues to do with biodiversity and nature conservation, where we manage one of the country's biggest lakes, Lake Chivero, which is part of the Ramsar sites also, under the the Ramsar Convention as well. So those are some of the amongst many other activities that we do.
And it's when things become real, right? And you see the real impact of climate change that is very much interlinked with many issues, including loss in biodiversity, agricultural practices, and many other things. Yeah. What are your demands for the COP negotiators? What do you hope to see at the end of this final week of COP?
I know there are lots of negotiations happening right now, but I'm looking forward, or we are looking forward to concrete action, concrete support, initiatives that speaks to real action. For instance, adequate pledges or real resources being put for communities to adapt to the harsh conditions of climate change. Real activities, for instance, lawsuits, regulations to stop all these emissions that are happening. We're looking forward to real commitments from parties. We need guidance, we need support. We're also looking for support from the development partners here to also support the community-based, the projects that are being done from grassroots, because mostly they are the most people that are affected, but yet we spend most of the resources in the conference rooms, debating about these issues where people are dying. And apart from that, we're looking forward to sacrifices from countries, from parties. We have to make these sacrifices, because either way, when you're talking from an layman perspective, these people are suffering anyway, So we have the Earth Day coming up next year, the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, and we are looking to have as many masses of people coming through so that we unite towards a common goal. This issue of climate change, it might be a challenge, but it has brought us closer. And as young people, as one of the young people in the other session was saying, we feel it emotionally, physically, like with love, with passion.
Yes.
It has broken all the barriers, all this. It's no longer an Zimbabwean problem, a South African problem, or a German problem. It's
our problem.
It's a universal problem, a global problem. So we really feel these things. We feel them from deep down. I can feel it even on my throat.
I know.
But yeah, that's how it is with us young people.
Fantastic. Together we are action, and it's very much a call for support also, because there are many concrete and tangible projects and amazing ideas that the youth climate movement is implementing. There is the need to support those initiatives. Thank you so much, Jean-Betrand. Continue to follow the conversation, #COP25Live, C4C Live, and We Are Action, and we will be back in just a few minutes. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks.